This is just kind of what we just looked at, but more in a graphical sense. Here's the total expenditures in the county government through 2007 to 2012. In 13, you can see this is just the operational. This was total, the operational expenditures in 2013. A pretty healthy capital year in 2013, and we'll see that again in 2014. As we ran through those lean years in the county, our capital infrastructure was something that was really ignored, and something that last year and this year we've really tried to focus that, we've got a lot of roof issues and a lot of things that we need to take care of the facilities now before they become much more expensive repairs later. Now's where it gets really interesting. I mean, not that this increase isn't interesting to start with, but this is as requested in the budgets that were presented, and this is only the operational expenses. This is not even touching capital. So you can see total expenditures in 12, operational expenses in 13, total expenditures in 13, and as the budget requests came in, where we're at in 14, and then looking to forecast where does that run rate of operational expenditures move forward. The assumptions are listed up at the top, baking in 2% employee raises, 1.5% inflation, and I'm also laying a capital line of $1 million in each of these years. We have about $3 million this year. But you can see how quickly those lines are driving up, especially compared to where we were in 12. And that's what we have to look at to try and manage. Now, as significant as that looks, it looks even more significant when you lay that forecast revenue in of where we're at. And you can see with the budget requests that came in, our operating expenditures already overrun that revenue estimate for 14 before we even touch capital. And then as the years go out, you can see that expanse grow even farther. So we're in the hole in 14 already and digging a hole moving forward. One of the other things that comes up is we had a healthy 2013. We've got that $10.5 million carryover. Use the carryover for some of these expenditures. As the budget requests came in, if we budget to everything that was presented by the departments, that $10.5 million carryover disappears by 17. Again, not even remotely close to getting to 2019. And if we put ourselves in that position, then shame on us, and that's why we need to take advantage of those things now, not later on down the road. So the methodology, these are the 4 points that Commissioner Burnaby went over at the beginning. We need to live within our means. The revenue must support our operating budgets. Carryover funds can't be used for the day-to-day operations of the county. We need to build a budget, and this is the important thing. We need to build a budget today that puts us on a sustainable trajectory into the future, because the revenue that we went over before, that's all we've got. I don't think anybody in this room with a straight face could think we can go to the voters in the next couple of years and get any additional money provided. So the revenue sources we have today are what need to carry us to 2019. The assumptions that are built in the budget model, the commissioners last year and this year had given the guidance of 2% increases to staff, and that's what is built into the budget model, nothing above. Starting in 2015, in the expense forecast and looking forward, I'm only building in 1% raises. If we're going to do raises in excess of that 1%, the revenues that are coming in are going to have, hopefully, those conservative assumptions. Revenue comes in a little bit ahead, then we can go to possibly 2% raises. I didn't want to not leave anything in the budget. I wanted to put 1% in. In addition, if I had factored for 2% raises into the budget forecast, I would have had to cut $300,000 more out of 2014. So that was one of the places to try and make 2014's cuts from those original requests not as deep as they had to be. And a hiring freeze. Other than those planned and funded hires in 2014, no additional general fund or JSST employees. So that run rate, that is what you saw in that previous picture, that is assuming no new employees, and that's just the normal expense growth on inflation and the like. Other assumptions built into the model: 1.5% inflation rate for non-salary expenses. From a cash flow perspective, being positive in 14, and then really looking at this over that 5-year period. being cash flow positive in 14 and 15, 16 we're a little negative, and a little bit behind in 17 and 18 moving out. Just to get to the numbers, because I did run some different models and assumptions. If I was going to be cash flow positive in the forecast in all 5 years, in addition to the $2 million in cuts we had to make that were already built into the budget done, I would have had to cut another $1.4 million to be cash flow positive all the way out. So that's why I'm trying to be somewhat conservative, hoping that those conservative revenue assumptions help lift those out years. Even just to try and maintain where we're at over those 5 years, maintaining our carryover and the like, we would have had to cut another $850,000 on top of that. So I really tried to look at it in 5 years that are a reasonable forecast. And this is what those numbers looking out look like. Our carryover this year, and the lines that are really the most important for everybody in here, are operational budgets moving forward. This budget was built, these numbers, working on the assumptions we provide, allow for a $5.7 million operating budget for Stark County in 2014. That's what the number we work back to. What that does, again, this shows us negative this year. That's because of about $3 million in capital. We're using some of the carryover for some capital items this year. But from an operational standpoint, we're ahead. Next year, we're going to be ahead. Just dip a little negative in 15, and then you see it gets a little deeper in 17 and 18. But if I go back to those revenues that are available to the county, the only one that really has upward trajectory is the sales tax, and that's dependent on the economy. If you look, no new headcount added in. Our operational budgets with 1% raises, just because of our size, grow $1 million a year. So that's why not having any additional revenue streams to come in to support that, this model has to be built to help absorb. That's just the organic growth rate of what's there from inflation and 1% raises to our staff. So over the 5 years, you see we're about $5 million negative, but through that 5 years, it maintains that 10% carryover at the end. We still have $6 million, and the hope is over time, again with those conservative assumptions, if we start to run behind, we're in a period where we can adjust in those out years. But again, we can't miss in year 1, or else years 2, 3, and 4 get really ugly. And anybody that was here a few years ago, from an elected official or department head standpoint, that had to lay off employees and go through that whole process, I don't think probably anybody ever wants to have to go through that again. And the whole plan is to put us on a budget trajectory that allows us to live within our means and not have to get to that point again.